Video highlights from Dirt Track Speedway, presented by Fast Chefs by Actual Exchange. They're not just fast, they're first. FastChefs.com. Hey everybody, it's Bucky Doren. Welcome to another edition of Dirt Track Speedway. We are ready to go, episode 12. Who knew we were going to last a dozen episodes? So glad everyone could join us here tonight. So tonight, episode 12 on our upcoming episode for tonight. Heat races, talking about the emotional week. We'll highlight some of those things that kind of made me move good and bad, I'll be honest with you. Trophy Dash, going to talk about my visit to the Bucky Speedway and the unique Tri-Track Challenge that the Farley Promotions Group put on. A main conversation tonight, Scotty Welsh actually on his post, I noticed on his Facebook wall, talked about kids and welfare. It was actually a topic I was going to bring up because of something I saw at Dubuque. We'll talk about that as well. And finally, my victory lane speech tonight, talking about bad racing attitude theologists. That and more in this edition of Dirt Track Speedway. Thanks for coming. It is July 17th, episode 12. So, has been an emotional week on a personal side, on a racing side. The racing community has had some very weird things happen and some very typical things that happen. Some good, some bad, and it's been an emotional week, that's for sure. There's been a series of social media posts, again, that have blown up and snowballed into other things. So remember, just like cars don't hit other cars, it's the people behind the wheel, those loose nuts, that cause the problems. We'll talk about that in a little bit in my victory lane speech tonight when I talk about the bad racing attitude theologists. But not all social media posts on Facebook are bad, to be honest with you. In fact, some of them are very good, very encouraging, to be honest with you. Paul Shepard, who I asked him make sure that if he was okay if I shared this post. It might be hard to read on Facebook, so I'll read it for you. He's talking about racing last night at Independence. A couple of weeks of trying new things went back to what we knew works. Last night was the first night that I have used a spec engine to the heavy moisture of the bottom. Started 8th and was up to 2nd, racing for the lead. Leader wasn't going to get up the bottom. Now, this is the point I wanted to point out here from Paul Shepard. I went to the top slick to see if momentum would carry me. Knowing it wasn't a good idea. Got 4th. Keep on digging. I need to thank, this is my dad for trying to give birth to a kidney stone while working on the car. Man, you, sir, are a man. I agree. Salute. And he also thanks some other people. So the whole point of what Paul was on there was the fact that he was 2nd, wasn't happy with 2nd, knew that what he was about to do probably wasn't going to work, but you got to run where they ain't. Didn't work. He got 4th. Still said, you know what? It was a good night, and I'm proud of my team, so thank you. I wish more drivers had that attitude. There's a lot out there, but not a lot of them sharing them on social media. Tyler Bruning enjoyed the reaps of reward for the Tri-Track Challenge. Tyler let me post this picture here. This is a series of trophies he got. I'll talk more about it during the Trophy Dash tonight, about the unique format that the Farley Promotions Group put on with the Tri-Track Challenge. But not only did he win a series of races, 3 of them, but also got the overall points for it as well. I got contacted by Bud Simon, the announcer over at the Crawford County Speed, who reached out to me and asked if I would help promote a fundraiser for Red and Kara Munson. Now, if you're not familiar, a few weeks ago we talked real quickly about this, but Red had suffered, had a cardiac arrest issue, and obviously medical bills are going on there. So they're doing a fundraiser in Denison this coming Tuesday, 11:30 to 2. They're doing it at the Do It Best parking lot. They're doing a barbecue lunch, $5. You get a sandwich, some chips, and a bottle of water. And if you don't have time to stick around and socialize, they do have to-go containers, so if you can help out and you're in the Denison area, if not, try to make some plans to go there. But great cause, and thank you much, Bob, for bringing it to my attention. Another fundraising effort that took place here, Jeremiah Hurst. There was a great story in the, the Telegraph Herald, talking about how Jeremiah Hurst was running and leading on Friday night at the Farley Speedway. Now, if you're not familiar, he had a heart transplant 13 years ago, and I'm quoting basically from the papers, and also Dirt on Dirt. If you got a subscription to that, they've got a great article on there as well. But anyway, knew something was wrong while he was leading it. Obviously, when you're leading a race, you don't want to give it up, and usually a lot of adrenaline pumps in through your body, and you don't pay attention. But he knew something was wrong. Well, turns out there's going to have to be some replacement stuff going on. They're going to have to replace the valve that's in there. And I thought what was really cool is while we were at the Dubuque Speedway, Enhanced Racing Images, Dan and Bo Bush, had this nice print of Jeremiah, and they auctioned it off. And then after the first person won the bid, he said, "Do it again." I'll donate it back. Donate it again. So it happened 3 times, and they raised $4,100 for the beautiful picture from Enhanced Racing Images. And I thought that was a really cool thing, and actually helped lift my spirits a little bit from the up and down negative stuff I saw. I'll talk more about the other hard news for a lot of us in the racing world to take was the fact that we lost Jessica Miller, who impacted an awful lot of people. In case you're not familiar, she's the big driving force behind Carson's Crusaders. Took a bad situation with one of their children, Carson, being diagnosed with a form of cancer, and created Carson's Crusaders. And the Miller family has been not just in Iowa, but from coast to coast. I want to thank Buck Munson Photography for letting me show this picture. Now, I realize this picture, for those that know the track, that is actually Deer Creek Speedway. Now, I didn't pick an Iowa track for this picture, mainly because, I wanted to make sure everyone understood the regional and national impact that the Carson's Crusaders and Jessica Miller had. And this is a standing tribute that they did before the racing on Saturday night at Deer Creek Speedway. A lot of helmets were passed at different tracks, different USRA and USMTS events I saw over the weekend. And I think there was like 5 digits race. I don't know the exact number, but I know it was just an incredible amount. And there was a ton of posts over the weekend to help also lift my spirits of co-drivers that were riding along with different drivers. Obviously, we're talking about Jessica Miller and a lot of the Carson's Crusaders supporters. The most notable one happened to be Darren Duffy, who was on his way down to Davenport Speedway for the Modified Madness, a 2,000 to win event, and he had there was an accident that stopped traffic. He missed his heat race, barely made the B main, started dead last in it, got the last transfer spot, started dead last in the A main, and was trying to race his way to $2,000. The event was shortened due to time. They have a very hard, strict curfew they have to deal with in Davenport. I don't know how many laps they got in, but I know it wasn't the full amount. But guess who won? Darren Duffy. So I thought that was a pretty cool deal. I'll talk more about my thoughts and feelings about the up and down week I've had, including some of the stuff I've just talked about here, coming up a little bit later on. A visit to Dubuque Speedway. Now, it's been probably, 2005, 2006, the last time I was there. I've always been curious on what they've been doing. I think that a lot of social media, and I'll get into it here a little bit later on in my Victory Lane speech tonight, but I don't think there's always somebody giving a fair shake to drivers, to fans, to even promoters. As far as promoters are concerned, I don't know if I see eye to eye on everything they're doing. They have a different perspective. They're coming from the racing side of things. But I'll tell you what, they're doing everything they can to make it exciting and fun and give back not only to the racers, but the fans. The most unique thing that I wanted to come down and see was this Tri-Track Challenge, where they, instead of doing one race for late models for 2,000 to win, they split it up and had 2 1,000 to win races. And I did talk a little bit with that with Tyler Bruning, who I mentioned a little bit earlier. He and I chatted a little bit on Facebook about what he thought about that, and let me read quote here. I think it's great. It gives drivers a couple different opportunities to get a win and for good money. It's a new idea, and they are trying everything to get drivers and fans to come to the tracks. It does get to be a lot of racing over the course of the weekend, but it was all good, and he said it was a lot of fun. And I was curious how they were going to do that, because it's IMCA-sanctioned events, and I was like, well, you can only do 1 point night, and so how are you going to handle that? So I thought it was very unique. They had time trials to set the starting grid for heat races, did a random invert for the times, and then raced their way into the A main. The first A main was the one for points. Then what they did on the second A main was the last car on the lead lap became the pole sitter for the second A main. I loved it. That is a great idea. And then the guys that were first, second, and third, obviously, are the last cars on the lead lap, and then all the other cars tag in behind. Was it entertaining? Absolutely. Justin Kai and Tyler Bruning put on a great show coming towards the front. Justin Kai won the first race, ended up fighting his way through, finishing second. Tyler Bruning followed him up through the field, finished third. Did we get our money's worth? Absolutely. And the cool thing was, it only cost me $16 of tickets to get in. I got 2 big events. I got some great modified racing, 3-4 wide. I got a sport mod feature event that paid $1,500 to win, all for $16. Now, don't tell me they're not trying to make it better. It's up to you guys to give them a chance. Yes, I think there's a few things. Okay, I'll give you one. If you guys are from Farley or watching, here's one thing that I would do. I hadn't been to Dubuque in 10, 15 years probably. And I'd never been to the grandstand side, so I'd always gone through the pit check. I didn't know where the hell to go. a sign would be cool that says grandstand entrance right here. Now, we just kind of followed the mob of massive humanity to the ticket window and eventually found our way. And we also found that the food prices were very good and tasty as well. So that's the one thing I would say that signs. And the cool thing, I forgot to bring it, but they actually had an order of events and the number of laps in the order and everything. That was very cool as well. Salute to you guys. Keep up and try to make racing better here with our Iowa dirt track racing style. All right, so my main conversation tonight is actually something that I talked with my son on the way home. There was a particular situation that took place while we were at Dubuque, actually. All right, so this is what I saw. This is the limited late models on the track, racing at speed, and there's these two kids hanging around the fence. Now, about the time that I point this out to my kid and I decide I'm going to go down there because apparently somebody isn't watching their children, and also about the same time that I saw a official in the grandstands area start heading that way, the kids eventually got bored and got away from the track. Thank goodness, because, you guys fill in the scenario on that sad situation. The point I'm getting at is we got to take care of the kids. If something bad would have happened, like even a rock. I saw actually flagmen always talking about getting hit by rocks. That stuff comes up off the track. And if you have one of those bad experiences, they're not going to come back. The kids aren't going to want to come back. The parents aren't going to want to come back. So parents, we've got to do a better job of making sure that the kids don't go down by the fence or play jungle gym 5 foot away from where I'm sitting and bouncing on my seat all night long. That was another negative, but again, that's not the track's fault. That's parenting. Now, on the converse of that, we as race fans and also people in the community need to take care of the kids as well. Because let's face it, all you got to do is turn your head once, and that kid can be gone. There's an awful lot of kids in the pit area, and I mentioned earlier about Scotty Welsh and his post. Now, I won't read it verbatim because Scotty has a tendency to be colorful with his words, but that's why I love Scotty, because you know exactly where you stand and exactly how you feel with Scotty. But anyway, he was upset. There was a couple of cars that went through the pit area during the races to get tires changed, speeding through to hurry up and get it done. And what if one of those kids disappeared for that one brief moment? And then, again, fill in the blanks. I don't want to go down that road verbally, but you get the idea. So we as racers and also promoters and also track officials, they need to be cognizant of that. I shouted through the receiver to make sure, slow down. Slow down doesn't always happen. It's the way it goes. So we have to work together in order to keep continuing to make our future better, and those are the kids. That's my main conversation tonight about kids' welfare. All right, so tonight's Victory Lane conversation, weekly is not your thing. Okay, that's actually last week's conversation. This week's actually conversation is talking about bad racing attitude theologists. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, it had been a very up and down week here at the Doren Man Sports Bar and Grill, and for a lot of different reasons. Now, I saw a couple of different drivers over the weekend, either on video, in person, and whatnot. They dumped another driver because they didn't like the way they passed him. And then apparently forgot that a couple weeks ago that they overdrove their car and did the same thing and accidentally hit somebody else, but yet they forgot that. Some of that made it to social media. There's also a series of posts that snowballed. I think the intentions were good, but there was talks about shock claims, bad track conditions, rough driving, and then so on and so forth, and they got onto social media. Now, not all bad deals made their way to social media, and I don't think people understand exactly the power that they have when they post something like this on social media. Maybe they do, and they're just wielding it to their advantage to fit their agenda. Well, too bad for you, but bad racing attitude theologists stand up on their pulpit and they'll preach about exactly what is upsetting them at that given moment. They'll jump to social media and anybody who will listen. They say that their goal is to help others who might not realize that there is a problem. Fair, and I understand that, but no good deed goes unpunished. In other words, the idea that beneficial actions often go unappreciated or met with outright hostility. That's kind of the gist of that saying. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't help somebody, but I want you to stop for a minute the next time you want to post something where you think you're helping somebody to shed light or politic for something. How would you like it if somebody posted something that you did wrong or they don't feel is right in front of thousands of other people? So instead of a personal conversation, it suddenly becomes a massive humanity jab back and forth. And then all of a sudden, all your supporters are going to jump in and chime in and say, well, hey, this guy's right. Why the heck are you pointing it out? And then all the people that love and support the guy that's pointing it out, or gal if the case may be, and all of a sudden you have a series of people pointing and fighting, and it just becomes a big chaotic mess. I offer one solution, and it's an old school solution, face-to-face. Let me give you an example of how my son and I faced a bad racing attitude theological moment Sunday night as we were leaving the racetrack. So we were parked, and there's only one way onto the road. And for the most part, everyone was doing good. Okay, you go. I'll let you in. And then it was the give and take, one and one and one. Well, there was a particular truck that had a big logo on it for a company, and he was looking right at me and right in the bumper of the person in front of them to make sure he knew, you're not getting him in front of me. I'm like, whatever, douche move, but fine. I can wait a couple of cars. Well, while he was busy trying to make sure I didn't get in, across the 3 lanes of traffic, there was another car trying to get in who didn't want to turn right, wanted to go left, so came in and cut in front of him. Well, he decided that was not the cool move. So he decided to get right on their back bumper, shine their bright lights on him, and then make sure that he was over far enough that their left head beam on the driver's side was pointing in their rearview mirror, and drove all the way, it's about a 3-mile stretch to the highway, and made sure that they knew that he wasn't happy. Now, on the side of that vehicle was a logo, a city, a contact information, and a website. And my son and I were quite appalled at that and thought it was very dangerous. We memorized all 4 of those. And then we thought, well, we should let everybody know about that. But then again, that bad racing attitude theology suddenly becomes you becoming nothing more than a brat. So I thought it might be smarter to contact the business and say, hey, this is what I saw. I didn't appreciate it. And then they can decide whatever they want to do about it. They can process the data, decide whether or not they really even cared what I had to say, or if they did, their decision on what happens next is whether or not I support them as a business later. In fact, I'll probably have more respect for them if they addressed it or came back to me and said, okay, here's the situation. Here's what we saw. I might have more respect that way. Now, mind you, not all the negative stuff shows up on social media. There's a ton of positive things that are non-brat-like, and I think that there is several other people before this weekend Jessica Miller was brought to light. There's been tons of other people before us. There's still a ton of people that are with us, and tons of people that will suddenly become a part of the, hey, we're going to promote racing, and we're going to promote the good things, and we're going to promote how good this racing community can be. But obviously, because of the situations that took place with Jessica Miller this past week on her way to a race, it becomes on the forefront. It becomes top of everybody's mind. Now, my family has had several bonding moments with the Millers, and it isn't just with racing. Jessica came in and helped a couple of years on a St. Jude Radiothon that I was doing with the radio station that I work for in Waterloo. In fact, came on one year and shared their personal story, which I thought was great. And it gave it kind of a more realistic feel because it was somebody from right here in our area. Also, we spent a year traveling. Both our sons played on the same team, and Andy, Jessica's husband, was actually one of my coaches, the statistician, and the fungo master. Long live that fungo bat of yours, Andy. It'll never be the same, ever shagging flies. Anyway, I won't even begin to try to recreate the same sentiment that Ryan Clark gave before Saturday's racing action at the Independence Motor Speedway. It was very heartfelt, very detailed, as you would expect with Ryan. Well done, my friend. Instead, you always ask why. Well, I don't think there's ever really an answer to why, but there are always things that we should take away from even the most positive or the most horrific of events. Despite brat rants that are out there on social media that brought me down this week, the racing family has continued to show me that, yes, we do care when we want to. Although she was taken from us far too soon, that is what Jessica Miller will be immortalized for, and all the other people that follow in her suit. We can all get along when we want to. Godspeed.